So, all right, this is Flux of FluxWithIt.com. I'm here with Stacy from Hex Inverter, and why don't you tell me why you're here first?
Well, I flew here. I guess I was supposed to do that, so.
Yeah, listen, what I want to know about is, first tell me about all the different drum modules that you have. Just run down the list.
Sure, man. So for the Mutant drums, we've got the Mutant clap, hi-hats, bass drum, snare, and the Mutant machine for synthesizing drums. And then the hot glue kind of works with them all together to mix them and compress and kind of finalize your drum setup.
Okay. So what I'd like to know is, you've got Mutant hi-hats, Mutant bass drum, Mutant snare. Why are they called Mutant?
Yeah, well, I guess the name is, I kind of like, trippy sci-fi stuff and everything, but the idea is taking sort of ideas collected from vintage drum machines and making them new. So they kind of mutate from, I take ideas from like old classic analog stuff, and I learn about those circuits and use those ideas to make something new. I guess I love the vintage sound, but in a modular context, I want to have lots of CVs, and I kind of tend to use drums more for weird sound effects that are percussive, but not just like a kick drum kind of thing. So that's
and that gets into so you have audio inputs on each of the Mutants. Can you tell me about how the audio inputs work?
Sure, yeah, the external inputs. I felt like, when I was working with the circuits, for example, in the Mutant snare, the noise generator is transistor based, so it's all analog. And those are really nice, soft, white noise sound, but sometimes you want to have a sound that's a little bit more controllable, like a digital noise generator where you can control the pitch. And so I didn't want to have it where it's limited to just being the one that I put into the circuit. So users can plug in their own, you could plug in like a VCO or the output of like a reverb self-oscillating or something and make drums out of that.
And I've heard that you can also use these as like a distortion module.
Sure, yeah. The bass drum and the hot glue both have distortion circuit as well. So, if you're making a patch and you don't want a bass drum, you can use the distortion just on its own, kind of like its own module. So I didn't want to waste, not that it's a waste, but, I wanted it to be flexible enough that you could do multiple things with them.
Efficiency of design. Can you tell us a little about some of the older modules that you have here? You've got the orbital sequencer. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. The orbital sequencer was kind of, I kind of wanted to do a sequencer that was reminiscent of old analog stuff, and so I had made some things with toggle switches, kind of like old Moog style. I forget the name of the module, and I wanted to do that with digital control, but an analog sequencing output. So it has a microcontroller in it for the modes and everything, so you get things like CVable step position and stuff like that, but it feels old school.
And what is Jupiter Storm?
Yeah, Jupiter Storm, I guess, is my first take on a VCO. I toyed with the idea of making, like an analog VCO of some sort. I might still do that, but I wanted to make something kind of catered to noise and experimental sounds, and I spent a lot of time when I first started with circuits making like kind of CMOS, like I guess they call them Lunetta synths, where you just take a bunch of chips and wire them together and make them kind of create crazy sounds. And this is kind of like the modular version of that, so it has CV inputs and things, but the core of the circuit is really just a bunch of digital chips just kind of banging away at each other. So it sounds pretty weird.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Well, listen, thanks a lot.